Thank you for joining the TCT Computing Group's webinar, Manual Testing Made Easy, using HP Sprinter Features. TCT Computing Group is a large HP authorized training partner providing HP tool training. Our consulting division provides tool-specific support as well as test management and TMMI assessments. Our host for the conference today is Pamela Fusco. Pamela holds several HP certifications as well as the internationally recognized certification from ISTQB. She teaches HP classes as well as the ISTQB Foundation Level course. She is a senior consultant and works with several Fortune 500 companies on testing best practices and ensuring their HP tool implementations are successful. Pamela will present for approximately 20 minutes. If you have a question during the webinar, please post the question in the Q&A section. At the conclusion of the webinar, Pamela will respond to the questions posted. Pamela?
Thank you, and welcome to the webinar. Our agenda for the next 20 minutes is to talk about features and functionalities included in HP Sprinter. First, we'll talk about being able to create a test, adding steps, and the steps capture feature. Then, we'll talk about running a test, power mode, and power mode features. There are two basic functions of Sprinter, creating and running a test. Sprinter's plan mode is new in Application Lifecycle Management 11.5. It allows you to create tests directly in Sprinter instead of only being able to create a test in ALM's test plan module. In Sprinter's plan mode, you can create a new test or open an existing test for editing. If version control is enabled in ALM, you can even check in tests. The same basic functionalities that are available in the test plan module are available in Sprinter's plan mode. There are several great functions that you can use in Sprinter. We can add steps to tests. Using the drop-down button, we can add a step above or below a highlighted step. This will reduce the need for reordering of steps in ALM. We are also able to cut or copy steps, add attachments, and screen captures. There's even the flexibility of importing steps from Excel or CSV files. When importing steps, there are still some rules that need to apply. An example includes ensuring items that are from a drop-down list in ALM are formatted exactly the same way in the Excel or CSV file. Also, the column headers must match the ALM field names. One of my favorite features in ALM and available in Sprinter is the ability to use parameters. Utilizing parameters in tests give you great reusability and maintainability. If at all possible, it is best to stay away from hard coding data in a test. A recent feature that's not yet available in Sprinter but is available in ALM is test configurations, which take advantage of parameters. Even without this feature in Sprinter, we can certainly set up the parameters here so we're ready to do test configurations in ALM. Creating a test case in Sprinter can be similar to ALM. However, Sprinter adds a shortcut feature called Steps Capture. Using the Steps Capture feature, Sprinter records what the tester is actually doing while navigating the application under test and stores the information into the description for each step. This can save the hassle of having to type all the information into the description field for each step. There are some different options available, such as being able to create all of the user actions into one step or doing one action per step. Using Steps Capture may help reduce the time needed to create a new test. Of course, there are some downsides to doing Steps Capture. One is that your test is actually being created against the application instead of creating the test against the requirements. So be careful and keep this in mind. Steps Capture is certainly a feature that you can easily utilize to expand your regression suite or to use if testing time is short. Additionally, while it captures a description for the steps, it does not give expected results. So you will need to fill those out manually once you have completed your actions. The other main function of Sprinter is the ability to run tests. This is my personal preference for running manual tests. I prefer this to the manual runner in ALM. Sprinter has two different run modes, Basic Mode and Power Mode. You have the ability to turn Power Mode on or off. Power Mode has all of the same features as Basic Mode, plus more. Today, I'll go over the additional features of Power Mode, but before we discuss those features, let's talk briefly about running a test using Basic Mode. When you run a test in Sprinter, it's much like running a test using the manual runner, where we run each individual step and pass or fail each step. You have the ability to log defects while you're running a test and take screenshots. Sprinter gives a display option called Subtitles, which gives the tester a single transparent bar across the screen showing the description and expected result for each step. I find this a little more efficient for running manual tests. These options are available in Power Mode as well, but of course there are the additional features. So let's talk about those. The first feature is called Define the Application. When you run a test in Power Mode, Sprinter is able to launch an application for you. You just have to define the application to start, which you can manually do, clicking the Add button, or if you already have the application running, you can click Quick Add. Sprinter will look at all of the applications running on your machine, add them to a list that you can select from. The Define application will launch the application when you start to run a test in Power Mode. The second feature that is available in Power Mode is called Data Injection. I find this very useful for data entry testing because it helps reduce the amount of typing needed and being so susceptible to human errors or copy-paste errors. For data injection, a specific data sheet or sheets are associated with the test. The data set can be stored on your local machine or preferably in the test resource module of ALM. It is important that the first row of the data sheet be the same as the names of the fields where the data needs to be entered. Using the Dataset Properties and Manage Fields buttons, you have the ability to skip columns in the data sheet if there are too many. We can also rematch to any specific fields if something happens and Sprinter no longer recognizes which field to put the data into. When you get to a place when running the test that you need to do the data injection, we simply pull it up from its tab, select the specified row, click the button that says Inject Data, and the data is fed directly into the fields. If any do not work, Sprinter tells you, and you can manually fill them out. Power Mode also has the ability to record macros. If you've ever used a macro in Excel or other applications, this works very much the same way. It simply records user actions and replays them later. This is very useful for precondition and navigation steps in a test. For instance, if I have a test and before I can run it, I need to log into the application. In the past, I would have actually run the login test, whether I did that with a call to test or use the login test as part of my test set. Either way, the important thing is that I was actually running the login test, which means I'm going to be giving a pass-fail to that login test, when in reality, I'm not testing login. Macros give you the ability to perform the login without testing it. The first time you run the test, you can record the macro. The macros are then available the next time the test is run. Please be aware, the macro will not pass or fail the test. If the macro doesn't work, you will have to run the test and do those steps manually. A macro is simply a shortcut. They can be very, very useful, but remember, they don't pass or fail. Be sure the actions for which you have recorded the macro to take the place of have already been tested. For those of you that do web testing, Power Mode has scanners that come with Sprinter. There are 4 default scans. Spell check will test the web page for any spelling errors. There is a primary language and a secondary language. The primary language in this screenshot is English. If there are any secondary languages on the page, like Italian, I would need to select that as my secondary language. The second scan is broken links. Sprinter looks at the hypertext links and makes sure that they all work. There is a timeout that is available. The third scan is for web standards. These are the W3C standards. If any errors occur, you can configure exclusions if needed. The last default scan is called localization. This looks at the text on the page and determines any display problems that have happened because the page was translated into another language. For instance, if I have a web page in English and a Spanish version of that web page, are there any buttons where the text becomes too long in Spanish to actually be displayed on the same button? Any defects such as that in the second language would be identified in the localization scan. The final Power Mode feature that I want to talk about is a feature called mirroring. This feature gives you a great step ahead in doing compatibility testing. When you run a test while mirroring, you have a primary machine and secondary machine or machines. Sprinter will run the test on all of the machines. In this screenshot, I have a primary host and several secondary machines to run at the same time. Mirroring allows me to run my test on multiple machines so that compatibility testing can be accomplished. As the tester completes steps on the primary machine, Sprinter replays them on the secondary machine. Sprinter must be installed on all of the machines. In summary, Sprinter has truly evolved into a nice complementary tool to ALM. We now have the ability to create a test inside of Sprinter. Whether you choose to do that manually and add step by step by step, much like you do in ALM, or you have the option to use the steps capture. When running a test through Sprinter, there are two modes that are available, Basic Mode and Power Mode. Power Mode gives you lots of additional features to help make testing easier and faster.
Thank you, Pamela. That will conclude the recording portion of this webinar.